Hi there, a very good morning to all our viewers who've tuned in bright and early this Monday morning. You're watching Newspresso with me, Stacy Periera. This is a live broadcast here on Moneycontrol, and as the drill goes, in the next few minutes, we're going to be giving you a lowdown of all the top stories, whether there is an impending shutdown that one could expect in the US government, and all that's transpiring here in the Indian markets. We have 18 IPOs lined up this week, so a lot to be looking forward to, and of course, all the trends that are doing the buzz on social media and otherwise. We have all of that covered for you. So let's get straight to it and bring you all that we're getting firstly from our global dispatch this morning. Well, it seems like, it was quite a week on Wall Street, with the major averages retreating on Friday. The Dow Jones shedding over 100 points, whereas the S&P 500 and the tech-heavy Nasdaq both dropping by 2.9 and 3.6% respectively, making it their third straight week of negative returns, as well as the worst weekly performance since March for both those indices. We also saw bond yields touching their highest levels since 2007. In fact, after last week's policy action from various central banks, Citibank believes that US as well as Eurozone central banks are now very close to being done with their hiking cycle. All eyes, though, will be on the US Q2 GDP growth figure, which was due on September 28th. However, uncertainty does prevail over concerns growing around the government shutdown in the US, as the Eurozone central bank as well are keeping a close watch on what's going to happen there. And talking about that US shutdown, well, the US federal government is heading towards one, it seems like, and this could disrupt many services, squeeze workers as well as royal politics in, as the Republicans in the House, fueled by those hard right demands for a deep cut, force a confrontation over federal spending. Now, government funding, remember, expires on October 1st, and which is the start of the federal fiscal year. Congress currently, remember, is divided between the Democratic-controlled Senate as well as the Republican-led House, and Speaker Kevin McCarthy's hard right-wing conservatives looking to use that shutdown to leverage for spending cuts. Now, if the shutdown does happen, this happens when Congress fails to pass some type of funding legislation that is going to which needs to be signed by the president. Now, when no funding legislation is enacted, federal agencies have to stop all non-working essential work, as well as won't be giving paychecks out because of this shutdown, as long as that shutdown lasts. So October 1st is that deadline which the government in the US needs to be. They need to come to some kind of conclusion before that. But all of that will definitely have a bearing on markets elsewhere, because in Europe, we are seeing those markets on Friday also close lower, as the prospects of that higher for longer interest rate cycle has emerged, with a slew of central banks now really putting forth their decision. The Pan-European Stock 600 index, that one has ended the session down by 0.3% on Friday, which took its losses for the week to about 1.57%, its worst performance since mid-August. Now, construction and material stocks were the ones that saw the biggest drop, about close to a percentage point, whereas tech stocks were the ones that added to gains about 0.77%. Though in stock-specific action, shares of grocery delivery group Ocado were higher by 6.3%, almost clawing back some of those losses it saw after plunging about 20% in the previous session, the worst session it had seen since June of 2012. While a British pharmaceutical company, AstraZeneca, that one gained by about 2.5% as its breast cancer drug showed positive results during trial. At the bottom of that Stock 600 index was Dutch bank ING Group, which fell by about 5%. And indices in the Asia-Pacific region have also started this Monday morning on a mixed note, we would say. Investors are looking forward to a slew of inflation data from across the region that is expected this week. We are going to see Singapore as well as Australia expect their report figures for the month of August this week, whereas Japan will be releasing its inflation data for the Tokyo region specifically, which will be an indication for the rest of the country. If you look at Australia, the S&P ASX 200 is trading lower by about 0.3%. South Korea's Kospi is slid by about 0.28%, whereas Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index too has slipped this morning by half a percentage point on opening. In contrast, though, we are seeing Japan's Nikkei 225, which has climbed by 0.66%, almost rebounding from the losses that it saw last week. If you look at the GIFT Nifty too, that one is indicating a lower start for the Indian equities. And if you look at oil prices, those ones also retreated a bit during the week gone by, and also it was the first weekly decline, if you have to see, in the 4 previous straight weeks of gains that it saw. This was primarily due to the fears of one more Fed fund rate hike in the US, but also was supported by a further supply tightening after Russia's temporary ban on gasoline and diesel exports. Now, experts expect the oil prices to remain range-bound with a positive bias in the coming weeks. We've seen international benchmark Brent crude futures settle at about $93.3 a barrel, falling almost 0.7%, partly on that profit-taking during the week. More than 11% is what Brent crude has rallied in the past 3 weeks alone. And after roughly over a week now that 12,700 United Auto Workers or UAW members went on a strike against those Detroit automakers, mainly being General Motors, Chrysler, which is the parent of Stellantis, as well as Ford, the union now has decided to extend that ongoing strike with more than 5,600 more workers joining the protest. Now, this expanding it to about 38 more locations. Now, even after those, we are seeing this being put forth by those automakers. UAW President Sean Finn has called out this a righteous flight against the rich and to get better wages and benefits for America's working class. Now, the union, however, has made some progress with negotiations with Ford, which has agreed to some of the union's demands, such as the reinstatement of the automatic pay increase, which is tied to inflation. So Ford has somehow made that headway when it comes to the union workers. Some of the other demands, though, being made by these union workers include a 40% rise in their pay from its members over the 4 years of their contract. The other two companies, that is GM and Stellantis, so far have agreed to only a 20% rate, which is why we are seeing that increase. Now, if the strike does continue, it could disrupt the auto production, which could then impact the US economy growth, as well as this accounts for about 3% of the national economy that just comes from the auto sector alone in the US. Well, last week we did see President Joe Biden, who spoke in support of these auto workers, and he said that he was sending a senior advisor to try and mediate this dispute. So we are likely to see this continue for now. 38 locations across the US is where we're going to see these workers go ahead and strike. Now, moving on then, now the southward journey, we could say, if I have to give you a recap of what transpired here back home on the Lal Street, well, it is a southward journey that we're seeing the equity benchmarks, which is continuing for the 4th consecutive session that we saw on Friday. Now, we saw the Sensex, which was down by about 221 odd points, just about managing to hold on to that 66,000 levels, whereas the Nifty 50 closing below that psychological 19,700 mark. Now, the sentiment appears to be bearish at this point. We could say even the broader indices ending last week on a mixed trend, with the mid-cap falling while the small cap seeing just about some marginal gains of 0.3%. Now, it's the PSU Bank Index, which has seen some major swings on Friday, especially after JP Morgan's India bond inclusion. We saw a lot of action there. But among the stocks that you need to be keeping out on your radar today, well, look out for SBI, which is raising about 10,000 crore rupees at a coupon rate of 7.46%. This through its 4th infrastructure bond issuance. So that will be a buzz. Also look out for Sri Renuka Sugars, whereas Weber Global, as these will see some bit of M&A action that will take place. You can also look out for Delta Corp. That one, the casino chain, has received an intimation by the Directorate of General of GST Intelligence, which a use notice. So they are going to be in the spotlight in trade today. But let's also get you up to speed with the momentum that's actually taking place in the primary markets, because we are expecting, and that momentum is really continuing, because 18 maiden public issues worth nearly 4,000 crore rupees are lined up for opening for subscription this week alone. Now let's get you each one of those. This includes JSW Infrastructure, which is looking to raise 2,800 crores. This offer also updated services that has a 640 crore rupees IPO, which will be opening during September 25th to 27th. Both of these in the main board, whereas you have Valiant Laboratories, which will open at rupees 152 crore, which they are looking to garner from the IPO. This will happen on September 27th, whereas Weber Jewelers will close its 207 crore issue on September 26th. Now, in the SME segment, there is more than 400 crores funds raising that will take place in this week. Firstly, there is Arabian Petroleum, there is Newspresso Technologies, Inspire Films, Sakshi Medtech, as well as Digicore Studios, which all will be opening their issue during September 25th to 27th. Now, the public offer for Sunita Tools will also be opening for subscription on September 26th to 28th, whereas opening as well as closing dates for Goyal Salt, City Corps Agro, these IPOs will take place between September 26 and 29, and for Contour Space, it will happen on September 27 to 29. Now, the other companies are E-Factor Experiences, Vinay's Innovation Technology, as well as Canaries Automation. These all will launch their maiden public issues on September 26th. On September 27th, as well as Vishnu Surya Projects, that one will open on September 29th. Among the others that you're going to see, there is Organic Recycling Systems, which will close its public offer. These, remember, all the ones that are closing and were open in the previous week. On September 26 is what we're going to see. Also, the closing date for Marco Cables and Conductors, Mangalam Alloys, and High Green Carbon. All of these will be closing today on the September 25th. And as per the IPO schedule, let's bring you up to speed with what all the listings that you're going to see, the D-Street debuts that we call them. Yatra Online will be listing on the brosses today on September 29th. As per the IPO schedule, this will happen, and whereas in the main board segment and in the SME segment, we're going to have Chavda Infra, Hallmark, Opto, as well as these ones being listed on the NSE SME segment on September 25th. Kundan Edifice, that one will be making its debut on the NSE Emerge on September 26, Kodi Techno Labs, as well as Celeco Gadgets on September 28th, whereas Master Components on September 29th. All of these will be listing on the BSE SME segment on September 29th. So a lot of action that we are expecting in the whole IPO space. Last week we had seen 10 IPOs. This week it's almost adding to that, almost double that we are seeing. So a lot of traction in the primary markets that we can expect in the week ahead. Well, let's move on then and tell you the other news that we're getting from the corporate front, maybe, where we're seeing Pune headquartered NBFC behemoth, which is Bajaj Finance, which is now gearing up for a big bang fundraise. And this we're hearing to the tune of $800 million to about $1 billion. Now, this could be via the QIP route or a preferential issue route. Those sources in the know are telling Moneycontrol that this is likely to happen. Now, the 4 investment banks that have been pulled for this are JM Financial, Citibank, Morgan Stanley, as well as Bank of America Securities. These ones have been shortlisted for the proposed deal, although a final decision on the deal size as well as the mechanism would be taken only during that upcoming board meet, which will happen on October 5th. Now, the last time Bajaj Finance raised about 8,500 crores, this was via the QIP route as well. This happened back in September of 2019. So now we're going to see this company come back again to the markets. The stock, remember, has risen by about 21% in the last 6 months alone. So we're likely to see a lot more action in that stock in the run-up to this board meet. And of course, come October 5th, we'll be getting you all those details of what the company has decided to go ahead with. But also, let's move on and tell you something that very interesting that happened yesterday, and for the very first time, India hosted the Indian Oil Grand Prix of India. This happened at the Budh International Circuit in Greater Noida yesterday. Now, Marco Bezzecchi, he's the one who won that inaugural race with a dominant performance, we could say, from the start to the finish, whereas Ducati's Francesco Bagnaia, that he suffered a crash sending the world champion out of the top 3 spots. Now, Pramac racing rider as well as sprint winner George Martin, he secured the second place, whereas Yamaha's Fabio Quartararo, he completed that podium finish. Now, India's crowd favourite though, Marc Marquez, who was holding on to that 4th spot initially, he didn't manage to rev up and finish the race at the 9th spot. Now, the electrifying event saw about 41 teams and 82 riders take part across MotoGP, Moto 2 as well as Moto 3 classes. And of course, we also had the who's who of Bollywood who made their presence felt there, from John Abraham to Ranveer Singh, all of them cheering up that high pulsating action that we saw unfold at the Bhuj circuit. So it was quite exciting because the first time, and people were really waiting and looking forward to having MotoGP here in India. Well, let's also tell you all the buzz that is doing the rounds on social media. Now, you may have seen over the weekend a lot of noise around Humans of Bombay as well as Humans of New York. Now, remember, Humans of Bombay is a storytelling platform that was started as a Facebook page back in 2014 by Karishma Mehta and has been recently in the spotlight, mostly because it has gone ahead and filed a lawsuit against another online storytelling platform which is called Peoples of India. This for copying their business model as well as for copyright infringement on its content. Now, Peoples of India is allegedly being pulled up for violating these copyrights by using images directly from Humans of Bombay's Instagram as well as YouTube channels without seeking permission. Following the summons that were issued by the court, we also saw Humans of New York, which is another Facebook page, which decided to weigh in and started and really went on to tell and call out Humans of Bombay and took to X, which is formerly Twitter, to point them out, calling them out for their double standards, as well as telling the Indian Facebook page that it has taken the concept that was originally theirs, that is Humans of New York's. And for this, its founder, Brandon Stanton, went on to call them out, saying that you can't be suing people for what I have forgiven you for. Now, to which Humans of Bombay has responded to Stanton in an open letter, saying that they have jumped the gun on the matter and that they were shocked by Stanton's cryptic assault. Now, we are going to see how this really plays out, because majority of the people on Twitter are really going after Humans of Bombay, since they've really not been quite responsible in the way that they've approached the whole matter, especially in drafting a proper response, be it to Stanton or even be it to how these summons are being put forward. So we are going to see that really, drag on, not just in the court, but also on social media is what we are seeing. Well, let's also tell you up next is news from, of course, the world of sports, where Ethiopia's champion, that is Tigz Assefa, has stunned the world this time around by breaking the world record in the women's marathon. The 26-year-old runner added a remarkable win in the history of Berlin's marathon as she crossed the finish line in just about 2 hours, 11 minutes and 53 seconds. Last year too, Assefa won the Berlin marathon, but this year this win was quite an achievement, as it left Kenya's Bridget Kosegi's record of 2 hours, 14 minutes and 4 seconds, which was, put out in 2019. In the Chicago Marathon, though this was. Now, the Berlin Marathon is renowned as one of the world's largest major marathons. Interestingly, we also saw Assefa, who only started racing marathons back in April last year, making her this remarkable victory and also overshadow the men's world record holder, who came in 5th but has won this Berlin Marathon for the 5th time around. So really, Assefa making that remarkable victory this time around, putting out that world record for the women's marathon. And more from the sporting action, we can tell you, where it was quite a perfect start for Indian athletes at the Asian Games in Hangzhou in China, as they won now 5 medals so far, which include about 3 silver medals and 2 bronze medals. This is the 19th edition of the tournament. Now, the Continental Multi-Sport event officially began on September 23rd and will conclude on October 8th. Now, who were these medal winners? We saw the duo of Arjun Lal Jat as well as Arvind Singh clinch that first silver in the rowing competition after just finishing marginally behind China. Then there was India's second rowing medal This was the bronze that was bagged by Lekram as well as Babu Yadav. Now the trio, which was of Ramita Mahali Ghosh as well as Ashi Choksi, they secured the silver medal in the women's 10 meters rifle event, whereas Ramita Jindal also grabbed the silver in the individual rifle shooting event. The other silver was taken home by the team of India's rowers. Now today we are likely to see Indian women cricket team take on Sri Lanka in the finals, and remember, this is the first time that cricket has been included in the Asian Games, so a lot to be looking forward to, and also cheering our women in blue. Let's tell you now what you need to be looking out for today. We are going to see Prime Minister Modi unveil that 72-feet statue of Deen Dayal Upadhyay, this on his birth anniversary, in the BJP headquarters in Delhi. We are also likely to hear him address BJP workers on the occasion of the culmination of the Jan Ashirwad Yatra and the run-up, remember, to the general election. So a lot of that, now actually taking shape, that we're seeing the momentum build ahead of that 2024 election. And after months of eager anticipation, we are also going to see the Indian Air Force, which is about to formally induct the first C-295 transport aircraft. Now, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary will be present to mark this occasion, and this will take place at the Hindon Air Base in Delhi. You can also be looking forward to Union Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, Hardeep Singh Puri. He will be flagging off India's first green hydrogen fuel cell bus. This will take place at the Kartavya Path in Delhi. Well, seems like a lot packed in this Monday morning, and of course we have an action-packed week. We can tell you that there is the US GDP numbers to be looking forward to as well. So we'll be getting you all those updates, but for now it's a wrap, and we hope that this dose of Newspresso was useful and informative and gives you that kick start to your day. But don't forget to come back here tomorrow, same place, same time, for your fresh shot of Newspresso. From all of us who put this show together, thanks so much for tuning in.